Hey, what's up guys, my name is Cherno. Welcome back to my Game Engine series. So over the last few weeks, of course, my life has been hectic as always. I'm getting married in 2 weeks, for those of you who don't know. I'm really excited to just sit down and have some time to spend on Hazel once again, and I can't wait for kind of all of this stuff that's going on in my life to kind of just be over so that I can just kind of get back to just having a normal, peaceful life. But anyway, let's just kind of move on and talk about Hazel, because what I did before this episode is, by the way, this is completely unplanned. None of this is planned. I know roughly what I'm going to do just because I've thought about it, but there's nothing's planned. So we're just going to have a nice live episode because you guys seem to love that. You guys seem to not like when I plan things and then just copy and paste in code. I actually don't even know what code I want to write today. We're just going to kind of see how we go. We're going to talk about some stuff. It's almost going to be like a good old-fashioned kind of Cherno episode. First thing I want to do, as always, is just thank the people who make this possible. Patreon.com/the Cherno is a way for you guys to support me and make sure that I can keep making these videos. Especially in a time like this. So huge thank you to everyone who's making this stuff possible. Today, we're going to just talk about what is going on with Hazel. We're going to start on the renderer and the whole rendering side of things. And we're just going to talk about, there's a bunch of things going on in Hazel architecturally that I have kind of been ignoring for a while. And in fact, I'm even not 100% sure that a clean checkout of the repository actually will build. So there's just a lot of things going on. So we're just going to kind of talk about a lot of things today and where this is going to kind of go, as well as get a start on the renderer. So this video will probably be titled something like, rendering, OpenGL rendering context and swap chain or something like that. I don't know. But we'll kind of just talk about things as well. So first step is to take a look at the state of everything. So let's just go ahead and take a look at what I saw when I opened Hazel. All right, so I think what I actually did and what I kind of forgot about in a sense, if we just take a look at this error list, I just did a clean build, I think, of everything, and we have this. So we have a lot of warnings, and we have 3 linking errors because I actually completely forgot. I went on to describing the renderer with the introduction to rendering video, as well as the actual kind of rendering API architecture video. But before that, what I did was I actually gave you guys a question as to how do we fix these ImGUI linking errors that we have over here, right? And then I proceeded to completely forget about that stuff because, of course, my life is just a huge mess right now. But anyway, not that it's a bad mess, but it's very hard to do a lot of things at once, that's all. Anyway, so we have these kind of linking errors. And I asked you guys, why are we having them? Because essentially what's happening, and I gave you guys the question of how do we fix this stuff. What's happening here is that if we look at kind of just the build architecture of all of these modules that we have here, what's happening is ImGUI is being built as a static library, right? If we just go to properties over here and we take a look at, where are we? This configuration type, it's set to static library, of course, and we did that in pre-make. What that means is that it's building statically, right? So we're building a static library out of all of the ImGUI code, which is great, right? But then what's happening is being linked into Hazel. Hazel is a DLL file, right? Which means that linking actually occurs, right? DLL files are very much like exe files in the sense that they just kind of, well, they have like entry points and all of that, but in this sense, they link the actual library into, libraries actually get linked into this DLL file and everything has to be resolved at link time, right? So that's great because it means that any usage of ImGUI inside Hazel will just be resolved and the linker will link all the functions, and that's great. But the issue comes from Sandbox. When we decide to actually use ImGUI functions in Sandbox by just linking what we link, which is, it's actually not even, this stuff that's in the additional dependencies is just stuff that we've actually linked into the linker, which in this case is just like C++ standard libraries and also Visual Studio kind of library, Microsoft Windows kind of libraries, like kernel 32 and user 32, that kind of stuff. But if we look at references, you can see it references Hazel. That's where the linking is happening. So Sandbox is an exe that links this Hazel DLL file. Problem is, if we use something like ImGUI begin and end inside Sandbox, right? However, that hasn't been used ever inside Hazel. Well, guess what happens? When Hazel links ImGUI, it does not link those symbols, right? Because why? Because they're not used, right? So they're dead. Why on earth would they include those functions in this binary if they're not used? It doesn't do that. But because of that, it means that they're not exposed to Sandbox. So what is the way of fixing this? Well, there's several ways we could fix this, right? We could, like, one way literally is just like, oh, look, IamGUI begin. Well, you know, if we were to go into Hazel IamGUI, sorry, not vendor, Hazel source, you know, IamGUI layer or whatever, and I don't know, just use like begin. Let's just use begin. And end, right? If I do a build again of all of this stuff. Okay, so that didn't work, and that's probably because I don't think any IamGUI symbols are actually being exported at this rate. IamGUI API is kind of what we need, and that's probably not set correctly at all. I don't know if it's worth exploring this because it's just a temporary solution, but if we take a look at perhaps Hazel vendor, IamGUI, and then the pre-make file, I think we'll find that yeah, like it's not defined at all, whereas we should probably define IamGUI, the IamGUI API here to be, let me just find something, like end, for example. IamGUI API should probably be defined to DLL export. So let's go ahead and, again, I don't really want to do this, but I'll do this just quickly to demonstrate my point. So let's define IamGUI API as, you know what, in fact, let's just do it in this, just because it is just a demo video. So we'll define IamGUI API to be decal spec DLL export. We will build IamGUI and Hazel, right? And then what we'll do is we'll take away that decal spec DLL export, which actually might trigger a rebuild. Now that I think about it, I'm probably really stupid. Yes, it did. Never mind, that's not going to work. So instead, how about we do it a bit better? And inside the IamGUI build function, when we actually include this stuff, which we don't actually include everything. Anyway, there's no real way around this. Let's just do it properly. I was going to hack my way through this, but clearly that's just not great. So what I'll do quickly here is for Hazel, inside the preprocessor, I'll just set IamGUI API equal to decal spec DLL export, like that, right? And then inside IamGUI, I guess I'll do the same. And then inside sandbox, I'll set it to import. Right, this is just a little quick hack. And then hopefully this now should actually resolve those symbols because they've been used. So let's take a look at that. Okay, so we get a successful build here, right? All of that's kind of been resolved. So that's what you can do. You can just kind of forward that. But again, the problem is that if we don't actually use the symbols, right? So I don't know, I'll try and remove this. I'm not sure if it might work in this situation. It depends if they've been used before. Like, yeah, so that built. But if we maybe try and use something like IamGUI, you know, color edit 4 or something, you know, let's just try and do something like that just to hack it in. Then that might ultimately not link. Okay, it does link. Great. Everything's the worst at this point. Everything just works. Everything works when it's not supposed to work. Anyway, my point again being that certain symbols might not get completely forwarded, but that is a solution. What I've just shown you is a solution. You can just kind of make sure that they're actually used somewhere and then do a decal spec DLL export import as required so that you actually get to use those symbols, right? In the way that I showed you. That's totally possible. And in fact, if we just run this, I don't even know what our goal was. Just to have a window that says hello world, I guess. And there it is, right? And we can drag it out. Which is pretty cool. Okay, so there we have that window. Beautiful. That is a solution. Another solution, and I just want to reiterate the problem. I know this was supposed to be a rendering video, but maybe we've gone a little bit off the rails because this is completely unplanned. But anyway, another thing that you could do, and what would probably be the better solution long term, because again, this relies. The problem we have again is that IamGUI builds as a static library into a DLL file, but the DLL file has the power to strip everything that's unused from IamGUI. So if the exe file, which links the DLL file, which has a static lib in it, if that decides to use something that is not present there, we'll get a linking error. Ideally, what you would do is make sure that everything from IamGUI is exported into the DLL file. But how do you do that without actually using those functions or making sure that they're used? The answer is basically to use a module file, a module definition file, which is a .def file, .def, right? What you do in there is you list all the function signatures that you want to export, and that is what the DLL will export. If we take a look at Hazel really quickly, I don't even know where this is because I think it's an input. Yeah, we have a module definition file. So we could make like a hazel.def file essentially, which just has all of the functions that we want to export from IMGUI listed. What that means is that everything that Hazel links in from IMGUI that is inside this definition file, it will also actually include in our binary and mark it for export so that we can import it inside Sandbox, and that will fix the problem. Unfortunately, these def files are not easy to make. Like you have to make them manually. As far as I know, there's no tools to do them. And I believe I actually have one of them. If we take a look really quickly, a little sneak preview for non-patrons. If we just jump into the Hazel dev repository and take a look at Hazel, you can see I actually made a definition file here. So we have a hazel.def file, which has like, show demo movement window, begin, end, color edit for, that kind of stuff, right? And you can see that we have library Hazel and then it exports the following options, and that's how we can actually propagate them into our Sandbox project. So this is a pain because you have to get the signature right, and then every time you have to do that for all the functions manually. So it sucks, to be honest. I hate it. Which is why I've kind of been having a discussion with all the people on the Patreon channel, which is the Hazel dev channel, kind of been having a discussion as to maybe we should convert Hazel into a static library, because DLL files are great, but they also, to be honest, I don't like DLL files. The reason I wanted to make Hazel a DLL originally is because of maybe the possibility of hot swapping code, and also just to make client-side kind of linking easier, meaning that if we make a game with Hazel, which in this case is Sandbox, right, the only thing we have to link is Hazel, because Hazel is a DLL file which contains everything else. That has a benefit, obviously, but it also has the drawback. Well, first of all, that benefit is easily fixed because we're using Premake as our build system, so there's no reason why we can't generate a game kind of Premake file which actually links everything that's needed anyway. And in my opinion, whenever I'd be making a game with Hazel, I would want a Visual Studio solution with everything in it anyway, right? So the fact that we only have to link one thing into the game isn't actually that big of a deal because, again, we'll have the Premake file already set up every time we create a new project, which links everything anyway. Benefits of static libraries, of course, are essentially that everything just gets linked into that exe file at build time, which means everything is kind of the right version, everything's up to date. The C++ standard library, we have one version of that, which we do not need to dynamically link like we are right now. There's speed benefits for static linking, right? Meaning that because the linker is aware of all the symbols coming in, it can actually do optimizations like inlining, which isn't possible with a DLL file because it's a separate module. We also have benefits such as, well, we don't need DLL files floating around. We just have one exe file and that's our entire game. That's it, no DLLs. What else is there? Just off the top of my head. We don't need stupid export import macros and all. Like if we look at just how many warnings we have, I'll just do a quick rebuild while I'm talking. If we have a look at all these warnings, we have half of them are just really annoying and they're because of DLL boundaries. Like this, for example. So if I just stop this here, and I missed it. Where is it? This shared pointer needs to have DLL interface to be used by clients. That's a really annoying error, which you basically can't really fix because we're using shared pointers across DLL boundaries, right? That's really annoying. Templates also sometimes suffer. So there's a lot of really annoying errors that we have via DLL. So to be honest, the way I'm leaning right now is I might just want to nuke this and just go with, what's the time? Man, I've been talking so long. I might just want to nuke that and go with static libraries, right? That's kind of the idea. So I think that's what I'll do. Let me know what your thoughts are regarding converting Hazel to a static library in the comments. There is obviously the possibility of supporting both. So if you want to build it as a DLL, you can. If you want to build it as a static library, you can. The more I think about it, the less interest I have in supporting both ways. I believe that, especially for a project like Hazel, which is worked on primarily by just me, right? Supporting too much and supporting a very flexible build style or workflow is just going to be a pain to maintain, and I don't think it's healthy. I think that it's better for Hazel, for us as a group, to define a good set of things to follow for Hazel, right? Meaning that, let's define the way that you build games in Hazel, right? How do you build them? Well, you use a static library in this case, right? you kind of have an actual pipeline, a workflow that's really well defined and really robust, and then people will follow that. This flexibility garbage is why like Unity and Unreal sometimes are really not good engines for certain specific tasks. They're just generalist engines which do everything really well, which is great and really flexible and easy to work with, but I don't want that in Hazel, I guess, because like we can't build a big generalist engine. I don't have a team of 1,000 people working on this, right? We can't build an engine that big. So what we should do, I think, is just have a really tight workflow, which again, for some people might annoy some people, but hopefully we'll try and define and decide on something sensible here. And then that way, everything will be just kind of really clean and really easy and will really work well, but we don't have to, and it'll be really simple probably as well, because there's not like 1,000 different code paths for the same thing, depending on how you want to do this or that, right? I don't like that. It's not going to work out well for Hazel, I know it. So that's why I want to do this in a certain way. And in this case, I'm thinking maybe we just say, Hazel's going to build a static library. It's going to simplify so many things. It's going to mean that, yes, everything is kind of at build time, but that's fine, because the thing is, there's no reason really to have Hazel hot swappable. If you look at like id Software's kind of model that they do for a lot of games like Doom, where they kind of, or Doom 3 at least, where they had, and then actually they do it for most of their engine games, but they have the game actually being built as a DLL, and then the engine loads that DLL, and that's your game. That's really useful, and that's really nice, because it means that your the game is a DLL file, which you can again write and hot swap and do whatever you want with, and then the engine deals. Like, why would you want the engine to be hot swappable? That doesn't make any sense, because ideally you're using this engine to make a game or an application, so the engine's done, the engine's ready. You're not just modifying engine code all the time. What are you modifying? Your game code or your application code. That's the part that you want to hot swap. So this design is not really beneficial anyway. It's only beneficial for engine development, not for actually using the engine, which is what we want to think about long term, obviously, as like a long term kind of strategy. So that's an important point, I think, as well. Then the other thing is that we're going to have scripting. We are 100% going to have scripting. There's no way this engine's not going to have scripting. It's not going to be in C++, everything, right? So because of that, obviously the scripts are going to be live editable and live hot swappable. Easy, right? That's fine. That's implied. This kind of stuff, C++ code, I don't think we should put any effort into making sure that that's hot swappable, because it's just not necessary. So that's kind of the idea. What else did I want to say? Yeah, so it's going to solve a lot of errors. It's going to mean that we don't have to deal with DLL boundary issues or different versions of the C++ library, potentially causing really annoying errors. It means that we don't have to export or import things. I don't know. Static libraries are just really nice to work with because they just work, right? They only contain the symbols they need, and then at the end into the exe file, into your actual final product, that's where everything gets pulled in and linked, which gives you just faster performance at runtime as well. So it's hard to kind of, for me right now, having thought about this for several weeks, it's really hard for me to justify actually using DLLs. If we had like a level editor that was written in C#, for example, hypothetically, and that was written in WPF or something like that, yeah, we would have to use a DLL. There's no way around that. But I have no plans for that. As I said, the level editor and all the game engine tools are going to be written natively, right, using IMGUI at this stage, although it doesn't matter what UI system we use. The point is they're going to be written as games, essentially, right? They're going to be written as real-time runtime applications, which is going to be, again, the best and most fast way, like the fastest way to actually write these tools in my situation, because I don't have a team. And that's also going to have the added benefit of being cross-platform, right? WPF isn't cross-platform, it's Windows only. Obviously, we could use Qt, but there's no way I want to use Qt, to be honest. We can write everything in IMGUI, everything's runtime, everything's kind of ready to go on all platforms, including like phones or whatever we choose to support in Hazel. I think it's going to be the best strategy for sure. And we definitely don't need a DLL for that to actually work. We just need, like, static libraries will be fine, and in fact even better as far as I can see. So that's my plan. Hopefully you guys can get on board with that, but let me know what, like, I mean, if I'm missing something really big, I'm getting a little stressed, I might just give this a squeeze. If you guys have anything, if I've missed something big, or you guys think that, whoa, hang on, what are you doing? Why DLLs are better, do that. Leave a comment below, right? This is a discussion. And I really want to hear your opinion on what we actually should do. But if we do decide to go with static libraries, which I think we should probably get that done in the next episode. You like that sound? We should definitely do that in the next episode, because if we can get that stuff done, we're about to make a lot of different API classes and stuff like that for rendering. So instead of having to sprinkle everything with Hazel API, we can get rid of that entirely if we choose to go with the static library thing. So we'll probably do that next episode. So I'll wait a few days before I make the next episode just to see your response to this. But I think that's the direction we're going to go in. And then the episode after that, we're going to, I guess, start on the renderer and kind of deal with that. So, and then I might make if you guys are interested in that module definition file, I think I might make in the future, I've already written it down, I will make a C++ series video which covers that. And then you can kind of go that route personally if you kind of choose to. But anyway, sorry that we didn't get to rendering this time, but I'm glad that we talked about this stuff because like, in fact, if we just jump in here, because I didn't even address everything. If we jump in here for a second, and we take a look at, we've got no errors anymore because so many warnings, right? Half this stuff is because of DLL issues. Half this stuff, this stuff being unsafe is because we're using deprecated functions. But again, this isn't us, it's IMGUI. I would probably use scanf_s, which just provides a size for the buffer you're scanning into, just so that you don't overflow it. And that's a really easy thing to do. But again, since that's not my code, what we'll do is just build IMGUI or build whatever we need with this CRT secure no warnings macro defined in the pre-make file. DLL stuff, and then this stuff is just stuff that's in the pre-make file that should not be in the pre-make file. So there's a lot of maintenance stuff that we will do. And potentially, again, because I am getting married in 2 weeks and I am crazy busy because I'm still working full time, although I did take the week before the wedding off as well, just so I can just come back into reality and just not be running around everywhere and be stressed for my wedding. Because of the wedding and everything that's going on right now, I think that maybe we can just take it easy, and that way I could still give you guys an episode every week, but it might be a little bit tamer, and we might just take this time to just clean stuff up. But that being said, I'm ready to make the rendering episodes as well. I want to make the rendering. The first thing we'll do, I kind of just made a plan this morning, is what we're going to do is we're going to start off by creating a rendering context and swap chain kind of for OpenGL, right? And eventually, obviously, when we support other APIs, they will have those classes as well. So once we have that, we can probably move on to creating, I want to probably start off with creating a very basic shader compilation file just so that we can really easily just create shaders, because that's going to be important. And then that way, as we build stuff, we'll still be able to have stuff on the screen because we can always write OpenGL client side when we need to, right? And then we'll kind of just, that way we have something on the screen every episode. It's not like, hey, here's 5 episodes of rendering stuff, and then at the end we'll see a triangle. No, because that's kind of how it usually goes. We'll always see a triangle, and then we'll kind of slowly pull that code away into classes and into our actual rendering API and into our renderer. So that's my plan with that. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, you can hit the like button. Let me know your thoughts about all this. Again, it's really frustrating for me, to be honest, to just not kind of move on and build this renderer. But again, you have to understand I'm going through a period in my life right now where I just cannot just do as much as I want to without going insane. So I would rather just offset this for another month essentially, or just kind of, again, be a bit cruisy over this next month and then hit it hard after everything settles down, and just that's when we'll do it. And I think that'll be a lot better than just kind of going full speed ahead into rendering right now and then having to take a break, because obviously I will be going away on a honeymoon and all of that stuff. So yes, you can also help support the series on Patreon.com/the Cherno. Huge thank you to everyone who makes this series possible. If you can't wait for me to do all this cleanup code and you want to just get this stuff as soon as possible, support me on Patreon. You'll get access to the GitHub repository for the development branch of Hazel, which already has an OpenGL renderer written basically. It's not complete, you're not going to see PBR shading yet, but it is a lot more mature. There's a renderer command queue that's written and everything, which encodes rendering commands into a command buffer and then executes them potentially on a different thread. All that kind of stuff is already there. So if you can't wait, check that out. Otherwise, see how much you can do, I guess, of this by yourself. All this cleanup code that I've mentioned, a really good kind of homework task for you guys, convert Hazel into a static library. See how you go with that, because there are a few kind of little small things that you will have to tweak, and see if you can get Hazel building with 0 warnings. That's your challenge. I will see you next time. Goodbye.